Back in the 1980s, in my other life, I was on staff at a large psychiatric hospital in Connecticut. And I worked on a unit, an inpatient unit that was reserved for professional people who were having issues with their mental health. People came from all over the country. A CEO from a large Midwestern corporation reserved a hotel room to commit suicide. Unfortunately, he was discovered and sent to us, as well as a brilliant writer who found himself so depressed that he was no longer able to function. We dealt with doctors and lawyers and priests, religious. We dealt with business people, athletes, and actors, many with depression and assorted mental health issues. The psychiatrist who ran the unit, a man I admired greatly, was a wonderful person. One evening, I had dinner with he and his family, and all seemed fine, but the next day, he did not return to work. He never came back. We discovered that he was also suffering from depression himself and sought treatment in another patient unit in another city. I'm reminded of these experiences as I listen to that poignant line from the book of Numbers. Their patience was worn out by the journey. We come together this weekend and we celebrate the exaltation of the cross, and I'm very much aware of the crosses that so many people carry today without anyone realizing the suffering that they are experiencing. Robin Williams had it all, and his suicide shocked us. How could someone who was so funny and talented, such a genius who made us laugh so hard, despair of life? Well, perhaps we fooled ourselves into believing that the Robin Williams we saw on the screen was all there was. There's a great lesson for us to learn from this, that none of us are one-dimensional people, that we all have many sides to us. The strongest of us have weaknesses, the weakest of us have strengths, the happiest of us can be sad, the saddest can be happy, the healthiest sick, the sick healthy. If we only look at other human beings as one-dimensional people, whether a Robin Williams or someone in your neighborhood, as only embodying one characteristic, we really do dehumanize them, and we make it impossible to really know them or to love them. On this celebration of the exaltation of the cross, let us remind ourselves that we are not always aware of the crosses that people are carrying. There are so many different journeys that people are on, journeys that are filled with many differing emotions, joys, heartbreaks, and challenges. There's the journey of sickness, the journey of losing a child, the journey of losing a spouse, the journey of unemployment, the journey of poverty, the journey of being single, and the journey of being married, the journey of depression and mental illness, and so many others. On any of these journeys, it is really easy to have one's patience worn out. At times, our lives can be very conflicted and filled with pain, and at other times, stimulated by great happiness and jubilation. So much of what we experience is joyful, but there is much today that is also painful and ugly. And each one of us carries this tightrope act within us, and we all attempt to balance the suffering and the joy, the justice and the injustice. It is an irony of life, where at one point life can be so fulfilling and beautiful, and at another so painful and ugly. So this weekend, each one of us and the community of the Christian Catholic community, we are all challenged to be more understanding and compassionate. We have to remember that everyone is dealing with their own stuff behind their own masks. We don't really know all that's going on. So we all have to be so careful not to judge. There's such a horrible stigma today regarding mental health issues. Yet, we must be aware that an estimated 21 million Americans experience some form of depression every year. And depression is an emotionally, a physically, a spiritually depleting disease that can lead to suicide. How many of us realize the statistics of our veterans? That every single day in this nation, 22 of our American veterans commit suicide. It is easy to lose patience when one's cross becomes too heavy. The challenge for us, the Christian Catholic community, is to be aware that what we see on the outside is not always what we get. Many people are struggling, and we are called to do what we can to help them carry their cross until they are able to regain their patience and their courage to move beyond it. And if we are the ones who are struggling, we must not be afraid to reach out for help. We all need to remember that there is help available. When we are weak, there are others who can be strong for us. When others are weak, we can be strong for them. So let us as a Catholic Christian community struggle to get beyond the stigma of shame that's connected to mental health issues and be able to share the joys and sorrows of each other's journey. Because remember, the strongest of us have weaknesses. The weakest of us have strengths. The happiest of us can be sad. The saddest can be happy. The healthiest sick, and the sick healthy. By the way, the CEO, the writer, and the psychiatrist that I mentioned at the beginning all regained their patience, and they continued on their journey. But they were able to because they didn't go it alone. There were people who helped them carry their cross for a time. So if you are suffering and your patience is worn out by the journey, don't go it alone. There is help, and there is nothing to be ashamed of.